Engineer versus Designer is brought to you by the Mojo 3D printer. Now you can have 3D printing right at your desktop at a remarkably low cost. With the magic of Mojo, there's really no limit to your creativity. See it at mojo3dprinting.com.
Josh, if engineering were a slab of fatty inspiration, you'd be a bacon-wrapped butterball, fried and covered in cheese.
I would eat my arm. Welcome to Engineer versus Designer,
The podcast.
For product designers, engineers, and anyone who feels they deserve meaningful work and would do anything to have a job they love. My name is Josh.
And my name is Adam. I do love my job, even though it means talking to Josh a little more often than I might like.
Yep, been getting tear-stained emails from Adam in the middle of the night.
Spicy.
The gravy, it is spicy. It keeps me up.
Last week, we talked with Joe Graney of Santa Cruz Bikes.
Check out that episode for sure.
This week, we're going to be talking with Cassidy Clawson of Workaday Media, who is featuring Santa Cruz Bikes in a special project.
Yes, Cassidy is the project director and host of the show called So You Wanna, a show that puts the occupational awesomeness right up in front of your face, showing you how it's done and who is making it happen.
It will be showing up in select schools around the nation with plans to go bigger soon. That's exciting. Josh, did you ask him that first question?
Yep,
in the interview?
I did. It was probably the best question in the entire interview, so revealing.
Roll the tape.
So, Cassidy, if that is even your real name, if you had the choice to lay golden eggs at will, but in order to do so you had to permanently transform yourself into a goose, would you do it?
Well, I need a little bit of clarification. Would I be like a walking, talking, human-sized goose that could engage with people in the world?
You would be in the body of a goose, but you could keep your brain.
There you go.
Interesting. I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because I'd be rich and I'd be a novelty. Everywhere I went. People would pet me.
Excellent.
All right, so if you were standing in the checkout line to buy a banana and you have 36 seconds to explain to Josh, who is not too bright, what workaday.org is before that loud banana lady gets to you, what would you say?
Well, I would say, Josh, Workaday Media produces videos and classroom materials that help high school students connect what they're learning at school with possible careers in their future. So really what we do is we make short documentaries about real working people, and then we back those up with activities and problem sets that show how the subjects that kids are learning in classes can be used to solve real work problems at real workplaces.
Sounds like something Adam could use so he could figure out what he wants to do.
He certainly could.
When I grow up.
At this point, we've mostly focused on mechanical engineering, and that seems to be where he's found himself, I believe. So not sure we can help him right now. But, a physics teacher could screen our, mechanical engineering segments in their classroom, and the students would watch as, say, Nick Anderson at Santa Cruz Bikes goes about solving his design problem on this new frame. And the students would come away from the segment knowing, what a mechanical engineer does, what an average day is like for a mechanical engineer, how much money they make, and how they could get started, how they could get there. So we're just trying to provide exposure that would help a high school student identify whether a career is a good fit for them.
It sounds counterintuitive for kids to watch videos about work. So, why do you think it's important to do that?
Do you say that because you associate videos with watching TV, which is the antithesis of work?
Yeah, like documentaries. Here, kid. Here's a documentary. Watch it, enjoy.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you ask most young people, most high school students, what they want to be when they grow up, you're going to hear about 10 different answers, and they'll be doctor, firefighter, police officer, movie producer, fashion designer, etc. And what those careers have in common is that they are either on television being sort of positively portrayed, like in crime dramas or Scrubs or whatever, or they are really exclusive, high-status, high-earning jobs that are sort of fetishized and worshipped by society. And what we're trying to do is figure out a way to expose young people to the thousands and thousands of other really interesting jobs that might be a great fit for somebody. Because, finding meaningful work is really about finding work that interests you on both a higher level, like, being proud of what you're doing or what you're making, but it also has to interest you on a process level. Like, you have to really enjoy the group of activities that constitute your work. And that's a highly variable, highly personal thing. And so we're trying to expose the realities of work to the young people, and video makes sense for a number of reasons. One, it's extremely cheap. I mean, the nature of video as a medium is that it actually becomes less expensive the more people see it. So that's good. Also, it's internet video in particular is a medium that young people relate to. You know, they spend tons of time on YouTube and watching videos on the internet. And three, we can tell really sort of interesting work stories. We can pack our segments with inspiration, education, and can really communicate what we want to communicate.
Fantastic. I mean, and I want to go back to some of that stuff about the content in a minute, but first let's just get an overview. Talk about some of the episodes you've done so far. What's worked really well so far?
Well, we have focused on creating a group of segments on mechanical engineering as sort of our pilot batch of materials. So we've tagged along with engineers at 3 different companies. One would be Nick Anderson at Santa Cruz Bicycles, Jacob at Plantronics, which is a headset and telecommunications company that's huge, and another engineer at NASA Ames. And each of those was really interesting because all 3 of them are mechanical engineers, but all 3 of them have very different work environments, different work cultures, different job duties and responsibilities. So we really get to see the sort of variety even in what many people might consider a narrow field like engineering. So, and what has worked well has been really sort of focusing on the relationships, I guess, and seeing how these people get to work and collaborate and how their job sort of brings them through their company and interacting with all sorts of other people, and how the team works together to create what they're trying to create.
So far you've been showcasing careers that seem to be pretty cool in the conventional sense, like NASA and Santa Cruz Bikes. Do you anticipate ever doing an episode on like accounting or patent law? Oh, goodness.
Well, first of all, I would say you guys might be pretty deep in the whole engineering world. Engineering versus designer. Not a lot of young people consider engineers to be cool.
Oh, come on. That hurts.
I'm looking at surveys right now from a career brainstorm that we did with students. I know it's hard to hear, but they described how do you think engineers are perceived by society. One person wrote nerdy. One person wrote geeky, spelled with an I.
Yes.
One person did write hardworking and smart. So that's pretty cool.
There you go.
But I see what you mean. I mean, the places we tagged along are cool, like Santa Cruz Bikes and NASA. Very cool places. And when it comes, and I think we're going to be able to make pretty much any job cool as long as we find people to hang out with who really love what they do.
Right.
You know, as long as they have the passion, we'll be able to tell the story of their work and hopefully capture that passion and make an appealing segment.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, what would you say is the most difficult thing about putting on an episode like this?
I would say that we have 2 sort of interrelated, challenging aspects of this work, and that would be authenticity and complexity. So the first is we have to tell a story that's realistic, but we're also a camera crew coming in, taking up a bunch of space, and trying to condense what people are doing, over say a week into a shorter shooting period. So we're really working hard with the subjects to try and capture natural moments, keep people from being nervous, not interfere too much. But it's definitely a challenge. And then connected to that is just complexity, especially with these engineers. I mean, when you're standing there talking about a part in someone's hand, for our story that we're trying to tell, the right words might be, this is a part that we're going to weld onto that frame. But what we might end up talking about would be, like the tolerances on the part coming out of the CNC machine and how, the different blah, blah, blah. I'm not an engineer. I can't do this. But I'll just, you can go down the rabbit hole. And that's, and we're trying to figure out what is like the correct level of complexity in these technical careers for presentation to high school students in a 10 or 12 minute segment. And so far, the feedback we're getting from some students is less. It's too dense, it's too complicated for them. Others say, I love this, I want more. I want to know more about the technical stuff, more about the software.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we're going to have to manage. And we think when we have our web platform for distribution of this stuff, we'll be able to have different cuts of the segments available with different sort of levels of depth so that people with different interests can sort of dip in at the level that would be appropriate.
Would you ever do a Workaday episode about what it's like to work at Workaday?
Yes. Yeah, we joke around about that sometimes, actually, especially when we're doing things that seem like questionable work. But I always like the idea of one camera crew like following along another camera crew. And so I think that would be
something really meta about that. So, I mean, do you ever think that you're talking about putting a Workaday career in front of a student so that they can see what it's quote unquote really like to do this? But you're doing it, let's face it, you're doing it in 12 minutes. Like a 12-minute workday is not a whole workday, right? With all of the grind that goes along with it. I mean, do you ever think that we should revisit some kind of apprenticeship model and put kids in workspaces for longer periods of time?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, we're like all of the above on career education, in whatever capacity. I think apprenticeships are one of the saddest things that we've lost in the 20th century. I would really love to see, subsidies that would encourage employers to actually hire high school students and programs that would, force or encourage high school students to get, jobs in sort of more career-oriented places. The problem, why we exist or why we're trying to exist, is that all of these programs are actually getting cut. So career education is, despite its importance and despite how important everyone knows it is, when people when a high school student drops out, the number one reason they cite for dropping out is that they don't see the connection between what they're doing in school and how it's going to impact the rest of their life. But they're not seeing how it's going to lead them to any sort of work. So despite how important it is, the programs are getting cut, and we are really like a super low-cost provider of this kind of stuff. It would probably be better if every school could have a career fair, and every school could have a bunch of career counselors that would set kids up with internships and apprenticeships and stuff, but that's not happening. So if they can get free videos on the internet and classroom materials to incorporate into their classes, that's a good stopgap.
Excellent. Is career education the one thing you would change about education in America, or is there something else?
I do too. Yes, I'd for sure. I would love to see more career education in high schools. I think every single subject should include it, so that when you're learning something like biology, you're also learning about how that could potentially turn into work for you if you're interested. But I would also really love to see teachers' workload decreased. I think that it's really astonishing that teachers have nearly a 40-hour work week of just classroom time. So if so basically they have to work 40 hours to be a marginal teacher. And if you want to be an exceptional teacher, you need to work a lot more to do all the grading and the lesson prep and reading that's necessary. And I would like to see teachers have a few hours off in the afternoon so that they can do all that stuff and be better teachers without working themselves to death.
Yeah.
So those are my recommendations if any senators or anything are listening.
Which they do all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Cassidy Clawson, I'm afraid we're out of time, but thank you so much for being on the show with us today. I really appreciate your time.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. Thank you.
Josh, I'm sure that if you had the chance, you'd probably change a few things about the education system in America as well, wouldn't you? Suppose you would have to get an education.
Oh, that is mean and cruel. I'll have you know, engineering paper is worth more than design paper.
That is nonsense. It really actually makes no sense at all. But friends,
Although
you should know
that
by the time you hear this episode, there should be some really friggin' stellar new videos at facebook.com/workadaymedia.
Yep.
You don't want to
check it out. Getting fat. If you would like to send honorary degrees printed on charred bacon to EVDHQ, please address them to Josh.
And if you would like to send a size 68 shorts and a rope to EVD, please address that to Josh as well.
I'll need them.
If you would like to bat our shins with a rake, These are getting violent. Head over to EngineerVsDesigner.com. Let us know how you really feel about that.
Be sure to like us, +1 us, tweet us, or whatever else us.
This show was edited by Simon Martin. Our theme music is by Ross Hartman.
We'll see you next week, and remember, while Banana Boat Sunscreen has a delicious sounding name, it is not itself delicious.
Very good to know.
Important life lesson.
Look out! Engineer vs. Designer is brought to you by Mojo 3D Printer, a world-class professional 3D printer for only $185 a month. To find out how you can give your big idea a little mojo, visit mojo3dprinting.com.
A production of EVD Media.